for Art 1. It deals with 1-point perspective and 2-point perspective. What you'll need today is a ruler and a pencil. When I grade your work, you should have a ruler, make straight lines, and it has to go to your vanishing point. So what is a vanishing point? It's a point in space that is invisible that the artist makes up, that all lines project to. So it makes things diminish in space as you go further and further and further and further back into space. Things get smaller and smaller and smaller. And as you come in toward the viewer, things get larger and larger and larger. So that deals with a vanishing point perspective. Okay, so how do we get from a simple shape to understanding perspective? For this particular assignment, you have to know this skill. First thing I'm going to have you do is draw a square. So one of the easy ways to do a square is to use the edge of your paper as a parallel. So I can use this edge as a parallel. And I could use this edge. Let me see, get my glasses on here. I kind of want to make it, I'm going to make it a little smaller, and I can also parallel this line. So I have a lot of things that I can parallel to help me make a square. I didn't measure anything yet, I'm just kind of eyeballing it. So at this point, I'm going to parallel my line and my edge. And my edge. All right, so there's just a square pretty quick. I don't have an eraser, so I'm not going to erase, but let's just imagine I erase those spots. All right, so I'm going to take a dot, and I'm going to put it down low. If I had a dot in the center, what would happen is my points at the corner, your corners closest to your dot are going to go to that dot. On this one, I have 3 corners that are going to go to that dot. They're open and ready to just travel that direction. I won't be using this corner because it goes through the center of my square, and I don't want to disrupt the beautiful square I just made. The other thing about this, let's just put a dot there so you can see that. If I use that dot and I have my lines going toward it, what happens is I have a wall here and a wall here. I end up with 2 walls. I'm asking you to make 3 walls. So in order to make 3 walls for your square, go at an angle, either down below or above, either one, on your piece of paper. So now I am going to, this is actually above, below, draw my lines to my vanishing point. Notice how that looks. They diminish in space as they go farther away from the viewer. The viewer is standing about here, so you can see down that wall. If I was standing here, I'd be looking just at my square. I know it seems strange with a piece of paper that has lines that represent places where you might stand in space, but this is kind of tilting the viewer according to your drawing. Okay, so now what am I going to do? I'm going to parallel this line. So I'm going to move out my ruler to the length that I want my wall, or the top of my box. And I'm going to do the same thing here, but I'm going to wait and just meet my corner. So I'm going to push it out, making it parallel. I feel like I just went off parallel, so check that really good before you, and one way to do that is to use your pencil. And that looks pretty good, except I'm not meeting the corner. So checking again, that looks pretty good. Now what a lot of times I see students doing at this point is they'll either pick up the corner here and have it go up too high, or the corner down here and have it stick out too far. So anytime your box looks a little cockeyed, those 2 corners are most likely the reason. Now, the rest of this can be erased. I will go get an eraser. Now we just erase this part. And you have 3 sides of your box. I'll just erase these little bits too. All right, so now I have a 3-dimensional box. It looks great, right? And I did it with 1-point perspective. What's interesting about this is now I had that 1 dot down below, but what if I were to turn it to be above the box? I'd have the top showing. It would be a different perspective. So you're going to practice having a dot up and having a dot down. What's interesting about this, and I'm going to just fly through another one, and I'm going to just do this hand by hand. All right, so if I have a box and I put the dot there, to me it is sitting high on a hill. So how do I make it look like it's on a hill? I would make, and let's imagine this is a house, because you guys are going to be creating a house. Oops. We'll just call that good. You will learn how to do the roof in a day or two. But if I'm going to put this on a hill, I'm just going to draw my hillscape in and erase the bottom of my box. It looks as though you're looking at a house that is up on a hill. If I have a box with a dot going the other direction, obviously we are looking at it as though we're looking down the hill at the top of the box. So once again, if this is a house, later on, it looks like we're looking down at the roof. So are we looking up at the house or are we looking down the hill? So those are the 2 different ways I would like you to practice this. You do not have to worry about rooftops at this point, because you can tell there's a big difference between this roof and that roof. We're going to talk about that on Thursday. For this video, we're just talking about 1-point and 2-point perspective. So what do you have to know about 1-point perspective is that you start with a box, a square, and a dot. And it'll turn into a 3-dimensional cube. What do you need to know for 2-point perspective is very different. 2-point perspective. Let's use this back of this paper. On this one, you're going to practice 2 of these, just like you're practicing 2 squares with a dot down below or a dot up above. Okay, 2 squares. On this one, you're going to practice 2 2-point perspectives. So what do you need for this one? We'll start with just a line. Seems pretty right. So now where do I put my dots? Put them someplace either down below together or up above together. I chose down below so you would get a good view of what to do. So I'm taking my ruler, I should do this real, I'm taking my ruler from the end of my line to my dot, and from the end of my line to my dot. So far it's looking pretty bizarre. It doesn't look like a cube at all. I'm going to do the same thing on this other side. And on this side. You can kind of start to see, are these walls, how cool they are. So you got to represent this as the corner of your building. And so once you see that as the corner, both walls diminish in space because we have 2 vanishing points. And that declares that they are diminishing. Okay, so now you take your ruler and you're going to parallel your wall, wherever you want your wall to be, parallel to that corner line. So that's the end. Ugh, that's an awful parallel. Once again, check that. And I'm going to parallel over here on this side. That's better. Okay. I I can erase this part. It's better if you do, because sometimes keeping that there gets confusing. And I'll erase that first initial shift of my line. Now you could definitely see the walls, but how do we get the top? This is interesting to me, that it's kind of like, it's very easy, but you just have to remember one thing. If I go to the top here of this wall, I have to go to the opposite vanishing point. So my vanishing point I kind of erased. I'll get those back out there. So I drop my ruler onto my vanishing point and then onto my corner. And I don't even have to draw it all the way. I just have to make sure I'm clearing this corner. And I'm going to do the same thing on this side. My vanishing point. And my corner. Now I know I don't have to draw it all the way. I just have to meet this other line. That is the top of my box and the two side walls. How do you put a roof on this one? So that's something we're going to cover on our next video, because roofs, once again, are a little tricky, and we are going to make them look like houses. So this is called a two-point perspective. So far, we're looking down a valley, and we see the roof. So now I'm going to show you one where it's the reverse. So I'm going to take a line. So I just have my dots down, or they're up actually. See, see what's weird to me is that I'm looking upside down at the video, and it's throwing me off a little. So when I'm looking up and looking down, it's completely different worlds. But I got to put my dots on this side of my line so that it shows you a different perspective. I don't care about this particular box. I'm just going to throw a dot down randomly, and I'll put a dot over here. You can have a dot off the paper. As long as your paper doesn't shift and the spot doesn't shift, you can use it. So sometimes a lot of students go, it doesn't fit on my paper. Yeah, make it fit. So I'm just going to draw right over top of my other box. Is that my dot? Yeah, it looks more like a flower the way I drew it. Oops. I'm going to take the top of my box, and I'm going to my dot. Give me your top. It's kind of interesting when you just plan it out like this. Now I'm drawing really heavy with my pencil. I do not want you to do that if you're crossing over other boxes later. We will be making a group of buildings overlapping each other. But in order for you to do that, draw lighter on your pencil, and it'll be erased easily. You won't have ghost images coming up. Okay, so you can see the walls. Now we're going to take and parallel our original line. It's the corner. Okay, there's one. And I'll just randomly do another one. Now for this next one, I'm going to actually tuck it in behind this other house corner, just so you can kind of see where I'm going. It could actually break the line and it looks like it's behind. But I'm going to continue it on just so you can see the rest of this box being made. Usually I wouldn't do a demonstration this huge, but for some reason I'm in the mood today. I am going to erase my guide lines on both sides. Remember, I need my vanishing points to stay, so I can use those to make the bottom of my box. So now I have the side wall where it drops the lowest. I go to the vanishing point on the opposite side. And on this one, where did it go? Yeah, that's it. To my vanishing point. Notice how big my vanishing point is. The smaller you make a vanishing point, the more precise your stuff gets. I've been making them huge today so that people can actually see them. And it's not like, what is that speck? Okay, so now you can see the bottom of this box. and the sidewalls, and the top of this box and the sidewalls. Both of them were started with a simple line and two vanishing points, either above or below the line. What length you make that line is up to you. It could be smaller. Okay. So what are we going to do with this information? As we go from 1 point to 2 point, this is what you're going to be doing. You're going to be taking some small boxes way up high, some medium boxes in the middle, and some big boxes up front. These represent distance. So the further back, you're going to have a hill, and your hill will have 1 point and 2 point perspective kind of houses on them. And because of that, you'll be able to see something off in the distance. The next one, the house roof, might be very different. It might cross over in front of another house. The next one, let's think, the house roof might be this, parallel on both sides, and you only see one room or one wall. It's kind of like not my content for you. I'm hoping that you use all walls, all points perspective, 2 and 1, so you should have at least 3 something showing, 1, 2, and 3. But this shows you where you're going to go with this assignment. You can stack and stack and stack and stack. The other thing, we did not use a horizon line simply because you can take the horizon line and bend it like we did for a hill. You can also create something that looks more like the valley, or you can take let's take a lay of the land and change it so it looks like a cliff. You can do many different things with the lay of the land that you cannot do with a simple horizon line from your middle school years. Okay, so this is the basics of where we're going. We're going to have at least 5 to 6 buildings on our final piece. All right, so I'm going to recap real quick so you know what you're doing. 1 point perspective, you're going to practice a dot down low or a dot high, well actually both of them, and you're going to show me both. This could be on scrap paper. Once you're happy with it, you can go to good paper and start some of your boxes on your final scape. But don't put them in dark, don't put them in dark, please. Do them very lightly. The other thing you're going to do is 2 point perspective, where you're using a line to start, and you got your dots either high or above, below that line, I'm sorry. So it's either way. Start with a line, put your dots low, start with a line, put your dots high. And you'll get both versions of these, okay? Practice each of these and each of the other kind to get the idea of putting a house on the hill or a house in the valley. All right, for those people who are joining Zoom, they will see 2 point perspective tomorrow. They'll see house roofs on Thursday. So if you're missing your Zoom instruction, it does help. All right, well, I hope to see some good stuff coming from that.